Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Pipe Wrench, and by Junk Be Gone, and by the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Junk Be Gone studios for today's edition of the Sports Source. We appreciate you being with us. SEC Media Days is come and gone, which means football season is basically here. We'll wrap up everything that had to do with the Vols. We'll wrap up everything that had to do with just the SEC in general. How did that Media Days in Texas feel? Did it feel like an SEC event? What about Texas and Oklahoma? They feel like they're going to be a fit, that kind of stuff. We're also going to do a lot on recruiting today. We'll catch you up on all the stuff that's going and coming with Josh Heupel's recruiting class. But first, I want to say thanks right off the top. Just to, I often say thanks at the end of the show. I want to say it off the top today because I thought this was funny, and it's the power of you guys, just you guys. I've been in TV 30 years. I've never seen anything like the loyalty that you show to the sponsors on this show. A few weeks ago, after Tennessee won their national championship, I showed, at the very end of the show, we showed a panoramic shot and said you could go to Express Frame and grab this, and if you say X, you'll get a discount. I was in there this weekend, and I was hit with dirty looks because apparently so many of you went down there, you basically knocked the doors off the hinges. The one person was working that day, and apparently she was crushed, and my name is mud with her. But they had a huge bunch of these things. They had to reorder 3 different times because you kept going down there. That just doesn't exist. I've been in local TV. Your loyalty to this show is what makes this show possible. I say thank you. Let's get involved. Let's get into this show. First segment brought to you by one of our great sponsors, the folks at Junk Be Gone. Summer's here. There's no better time to clear the junk from your attic, your garage, your shed, your backyard, your front yard, your business. They come and they'll clear out a business too. If you've got an office, you got to get rid of the old desks, the old chairs. You don't have to do that yourself. Call Junk Be Gone. They'll send out one of their teams, and these are professional folks. They're great. They come right in, haul it off for you. It's perfect. JunkBeGone.biz will tell you everything you need to know about this family-owned, locally owned company. And I know there are a lot of imitators out there who've kind of seen this idea and tried to copy it. Let me tell you, I go with the original, and I'm happy I do. And I always have been. You should too. Junk Be Gone. All right. Let's welcome in the panelists for today. We have right there Chuck Cavaleras, Vince Ferrara right here, Ryan Callahan, Will West. Appreciate all you guys for being here today. All right. As I said, it's the unofficial start of football season when the SEC Media Days rolls around. You just finished that up in Dallas, Texas. Vince and Will were there, which we'll talk to you a little bit more about that a little later. But let's start with basically the big takeaway. Everybody waits to see what the media says. Now, the media rarely gets this thing right in terms of who's going to get the championship, but let's go ahead and take a look at their predictions for the fall. Georgia, #1, Texas, #2, Alabama, 3. And now, take this with a grain of salt, of course, because Vanderbilt and South Carolina got first place votes. So when we say media, the SEC just makes money off these people. So if you run ilovevandy.com, they will let you in, and you count as media. So some idiots go down there and pick Vanderbilt every year and snicker and giggle because they're morons.
Record 1,200 plus media there. So.
Yeah, real media. Okay. And there, 1,188, not media. But anyway, Tennessee 7th. I talked to some people last week that felt, okay, Tennessee will be 6th, maybe 5th, 7th. All right, let's just start. Is that a slight, Will West, or does the media have them in the right place?
I think they have them right. That's the order. The first 10 are the order that I had. And that, well, I guess flip Missouri and LSU. But otherwise, I had exactly that order. I think Tennessee is going to be 7th. A lot of this is we're trying to figure out the schedules aren't equitable anymore. Some teams have easier schedules in the SEC than others. Used to, West played the West, East played the East. You had one opponent that might be different, but that's about it. I think trying to figure out what Missouri and Ole Miss are going to do with a seemingly easier schedule is a little bit difficult right now. And so you think their win total will be higher. I think Tennessee is behind LSU right now. And so I think 7th is about right. I don't think that's a slight. I still think you can go 9-3 and finish 7th in the conference this year because of the way the schedules are set up.
It's just people are going to have to get used to seeing 16 teams, or in the Big Ten, 18 teams, and somebody's got to go somewhere. So when you put the strata like that, somebody's going to be 7th, 8th, 9th, down to whatever. What do you think? Is that right or wrong?
Just to pick a side, because I do think it's close, I will say they didn't get slighted. Because I would have them, if I was ranking them and doing my own tiebreakers, 5th, ahead of LSU and Missouri. However, I think the reality of this league is you're going to have like 3, 4, maybe 5 teams with the same record in certain spots. And then you're really getting into semantics and little tiebreakers and stuff like that. So it all can come out in the wash or just with the lottery balls and be about the same. So I would have Tennessee 5th, but they could all very well have the same record.
Right. I tell you what, until you look at that Missouri schedule, I would have Tennessee 6th. But I think the Missouri schedule is the easiest in the history of the 16-team SEC. That's how easy I think it is. I mean, the only team they play that's ranked above them, in the 5 above them, is at Alabama. So, I mean, you can look at that schedule, even though they lost their defensive coordinator, they lose on defense. But that's why I think you bump them up. In Tennessee, I think that's about right.
The graphic that John has showed on this show to us, where the Vegas opponent win totals for everybody in the league, and Oklahoma had by far the hardest, LSU 54, Tennessee 52, Missouri 51, tied with Texas with the easiest schedule. So that right there would tell you their schedule is not that different.
Yeah, it's interesting. You got Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee, and Missouri, all right between 51 and 55 opponent victories according to Las Vegas.
Right.
And those are the teams that are kind of bunched there together.
Right.
And I think that's, it is a product of the schedule. Ryan, is that a slight?
I'll say a minor slight.
A slight
It's not
slight?
Yeah, a slight. Exactly. It's not a big one. I think like Ben said, they're so close. You're splitting hairs between 5 and 7. I think in a lot of ways, but Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, those are the right 3 to bicker about. I would have had them 5th or 6th. 6 probably seems about right to me, but it really depends on what you think of LSU. I think LSU has a bunch of wild cards. They got a new quarterback. We have no idea what they're going to look like in the post-Jaden Daniels era. I'm not as high on LSU as some people, but I get it. They get the benefit of the doubt. They might have a more talented roster top to bottom, so it doesn't insult me that Tennessee's 7th, but like I would say it's this minor slight because it's a borderline playoff team with legitimate reason.
It also doesn't take into account somebody's going to break an ankle.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to lose somebody to a knee injury. We don't know that.
Achilles.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know that stuff yet.
What I think it reflects is the All-SEC ballot that we'll get into later.
we'll get
is
into
that
that.
Tennessee doesn't have much star power. That's part of what people look at, and they only notice a couple of names that they recognize.
Missouri only has one All-SEC. We'll get into that later. And that's a burden, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing that's funny is we always go, well, their schedule is easier. But as I've shown on here and as Vince has written down there, according to Las Vegas, their schedule is not easier than Tennessee's. They're both right there at like 52, 51 wins for their opponents. Well, you've said something, we've talked about this on radio, but you've said it on radio. We haven't talked about it. Now I'm going to challenge you with it. The fact that you said that SEC schedules are no longer equitable.
They are not.
I would make I agree with that, but I would make the case they weren't equitable to start with. It was just simply, instead of these teams could be easy and these could be hard, it was West is hard, East is easy.
It could be that. There were times that was the case.
Yeah,
yes.
I didn't think it was I didn't think it was that equitable back in the day. I think fans in the West would tell you this isn't equitable. We don't get the chumps. Whereas Tennessee fans would always say, "Oh, we play the devil's schedule. We got Alabama and Georgia and Florida." So I don't know that it was that much more equitable before. I just think it was more split down lines than it is now. Agree, disagree, make your point.
I think to some extent. I think that the schedules now, they are clearly trying to do a top tier, middle tier, bottom tier. And if you're in the middle tier, they give you fewer of the top tier. If you're in the top tier, you get more of the top tier. Alabama's schedule is ridiculous this year, honestly. Regardless of what Vegas wants to, where the Vegas win total is, I just think it's insane. Texas is pretty darn easy.
Yeah, they got the easiest in the league.
Oklahoma's is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit all over the place, but it doesn't ever work out the way it looks on paper, right?
Exactly.
So, which is one of the reasons why I always push back on the eyeball test as the determining factor of who gets into the playoff, because paper never really tells the story in true playoff sports, or rarely does. So on paper, it looks this way. This is why I'm saying, the media, we're always wrong, right? This is, I think, my 12th that I've been to. We're always wrong. The other side of it is none of us know what this new dynamic's going to look like. Because if Texas A&M's better than if they play to their talent level,
Right. If
all
Mike
of a
Elko
sudden
gets
that
something out of
changes
them.
everything, right? About
Right.
people having to play Texas A&M. If Missouri losing a couple of linemen, if that becomes a difference maker, what Brady Cook and Luther Burden can do, then all of a sudden maybe their schedule doesn't look nearly as
If
easy.
Oklahoma gets a bunch of new linemen in there who
Yeah.
gel quicker
Right.
than we all think,
Yep.
maybe that. So you don't know all that.
And
stuff,
really,
but-
don't you think to judge the SEC schedule, you need to look at it after 2 seasons?
Probably.
When you wrote in Texas and Texas and Oklahoma are rotated in and out, and maybe some other things. To me, I think that's how you look at it and see.
It
how
looks like
it
we're
stacks
going to get this schedule again next year,
Yep.
and then maybe they'll go to 9, maybe.
Maybe.
Couple things I disagree real quick
Quickly.
on Will. One, I don't see the tiering that they did with this year's schedule. Maybe you see a
That
vision
was
that I
honestly
don't.
that was a thing from the Athletic that was said that when they were
Okay.
putting this together.
And the other thing is, the SEC, the media has done a little bit better job as of late. Like historically, they've gotten it butchered. 5 of the last 10 years, they have correctly picked the national
champ.
champion. So at least it's not the absolute. This team will not win the championship.
Oh yeah.
Alabama and Georgia have made it easier.
Yes, they have.
They have made it
Yeah,
a lot
that's you're basically just flipping a coin between those two. All right, because it was like there was a streak there before this big run by Alabama Georgia where it was like 10 straight years that it hadn't been correct. All right, when we come back, Heupel says his roster is deep, but as Ryan alluded to, only 2 Vols made the All-SEC list. Who's correct? Does the coach know his roster, or does the media know it better? We'll discuss. Come on back.